strengthening the European Child Guarantee national governance systems and supporting access to labor market for Roma needs. This call is published under European Social Fund Plus Social Innovation Plus initiative and is a part of European Commission anti-poverty strategy. In the next 3 hours, you will learn why this call is important and how, by means of social innovation and social experimentation, lives of most vulnerable groups can be improved. Our goal for today's session is to equip you with all necessary tools, allowing you to submit a winning application. Now, before we proceed with our presentations, I'd like to invite representatives of the European Commission to give a welcoming address. So,
yes.
Yes, yeah. Iri, welcome. So, yeah, let's start with Iri Schwartz and then following by Michael Gross. Morning.
Ina, many thanks for this information session. For us, this is a very important project that is now being launched. We have high expectations that this is something that will help to deliver on better implementation and the governance of the European Child Guarantee in the participating countries. And we are glad that the European Child Guarantee is very well visible, not only in the member states, but also in the candidate countries and potential candidates. So we are very happy to see high interest. As you mentioned, this is a part of the social package, or the anti-poverty strategy that was adopted 4 weeks ago, was it? So we are also very happy that we are able to follow up on the package very soon after it's adopted. I will speak about it in a minute, so I will not go into much detail. But we are very committed to deliver on the package. There are a number of initiatives that are being rolled out. And for us, this is basically a start of work of many different work streams, and this is one of them. Coming back to strengthening of the child guarantee is something that is very high on the political agenda, at least in the Commission. You may know that this is something that was flagged already in the political guidelines for this Commission, also in the State of the Union speech of the Commission President. So we are really delivering on an important policy objective. And overall, and maybe colleagues will speak about this later, anti-poverty package also puts a lot of focus on activation, on transition from childhood to adulthood, on helping young adults to find their ways also to quality jobs. And obviously, we are aware that those who are most vulnerable need most support. And this is also part of the second call that is being launched, which is focusing on the Roma needs or their activation to bring them closer to the labor market. But I think that's enough for opening. I will pass the floor to my colleagues to say more, and looking forward to come back to you later.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Jiří, for the broader picture, and a big thanks to Emilia and Ina and your team for drafting this call together with us. So the European Competence Center for Social Innovation, as you're working for, Ina, is based in Vilnius in Lithuania. This is a part of the Lithuanian ESF agency, and we have a framework agreement with ESFA since 2022, and we are advancing social innovation together since that time. One element of this collaboration is launching and implementation of calls for innovative projects. A second part is the mutual learning and the transnational exchanges that we have in different communities of practices, and they both together are crucial elements to promote social innovation as a tool to tackle societal challenges. And poverty is a big challenge that has multi dimensions, and we believe that we need to look into new forms of tackling this, and this is what this call is all about. I want to just highlight one or two elements on social innovation in this context, and I think it's the collaboration. It's the finding partners, working together, and getting inspiration from other sources. And here we're looking at transnational exchanges. We are looking at what's happening in other EU member states, but also in easy participating countries, and to work together to inspire each other and learn from each other. So this element is crucial when you form a consortium, when you apply for these calls, for these two strands which we have on anti-poverty, on the integration of Roma needs into the labor market. And this is also, I think, the big learning that we can see. Now, it might be mentioned later in the presentation, but I want to highlight also that we have a tool available to help you with looking for partners and organizations that are active in these areas across the EU 27, which is the Social Innovation Match, the SIM database. You will find the link either in the chat, or you'll find it on our website or on ESFA's website, socialinnovationplus.eu. And I invite you to first screen the projects there and the organizations to find partners, but also like to possibly upload your projects in order to be visible, in order to learn, in order to share what you're doing. And without further ado, I want to give back to Ina and her team, and I wish you success with your applications and further on with the projects that you will hopefully implement together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jiří. Thank you, Mikhail, for the kind words of welcome. Now let's proceed with our presentations. And before we move to a more technical part of this session, let's begin with answering the question why this call is important. And I'd like to welcome back Jiří to present, give us an overview of the anti-poverty strategy, and also give us a background of the first strand of this call on strengthening of European Child Guarantee.
Okay, many thanks. Many thanks. I will try not to speak too long, because this is really just to give you a background. The main point of this session is obviously different. If you can maybe launch the slides, that would be useful. In any case, the slides will be circulated, so don't worry if I run through them very quickly. I don't really want to spend too much time on this. So why the anti-poverty package is actually proposed by the Commission? I mean, first of all, in the current situation of cost of living crisis and different socioeconomic instabilities, we believe this is a really right time and right thing to do to ensure that the social protection for the most vulnerable is fully in place. And this is very important to provide for some stable social safety nets that the anti-poverty package presents. It's not only the package, but it's also all the previous work that we are doing at EU level, and of course at EU level we in this case provide guidance to member states, space for mutual learning and cooperation, and this is big part of it is embedded in the what we call the minimum income recommendation, which really provides for the basic social safety net. So this is why we're doing the package. It's also obviously economically smart things to do. Poverty is expensive. Child poverty is even more expensive. No need to elaborate on that. I believe you are aware. And as I mentioned, the pressures, the economic pressures are really high. Cost of living, we had inflation peak, housing costs, etc. This is something that is really on minds of the EU citizens and is worrying them a lot. So what is in the package? You can go to another slide. We have Commission communication on the anti-poverty strategy itself. I would like to draw your attention also to the principles for effective anti-poverty frameworks. This is a separate staff working document, and this allows for a comprehensive, if you want, checklist of things to take care of if you as a member state or regional or local authority engage in putting together anti-poverty framework. Because the anti-poverty strategy itself is a political communication. It is a short policy document. It cannot by any means be comprehensive. And this is more the role of the principles, which really outlines the key policy elements that need to be taken care of when you, especially member states, are putting together anti-poverty strategy. So please take your time and have a look at the principles. What maybe you can go to the next slide. What is the narrative of the strategy? We're looking at the life cycle approach. Children obviously is something that is covered by strengthening of the child guarantee and other related actions. Then we come to adulthood, which is very much focused on support to families, on support to activation, ensuring that people have access to quality jobs and that the transition to jobs is taken care of. And here we are launching soon the first stage consultation on possible EU legal action to support labor market activation. So this is what is coming. We're also looking at in-work poverty with upcoming Commission recommendation next year, and transitioning to old age. What is coming up is our report on adequate social protection in the old age next year, when we want to launch a high-level exchange on integrated policies to make sure that the challenges of old age and transition to old age are put also upfront in the policy making. On the next slide, you will see some examples of measures that the strategy is putting forward. We want to have a look at the socioeconomic discrimination. This is something that comes very often when we talk to people experiencing poverty. This is what they raise more often than income support. the issue of unequal opportunities and stigma that is accompanying the people experiencing poverty. As a part of the package, we also come with a proposal for a council recommendation on fighting housing exclusion. We have already started to discuss in the council with member states how to shape the policies in terms of housing exclusion. So hopefully we will conclude this council recommendation soon. And we also want to come up with a recommendation on access to services, because services is really something that can be a game changer in terms of activation, active inclusion, bringing people, including children, to closer to the society. And of course, services is or access to services is the key element of European Child Guarantee. Next slide. Continuing with further actions, strengthen monitoring, engaging private sector in a form of a coalition against poverty, private and philanthropic sector. So this is all on our plans for the future, including dialogue or more structured dialogue with people experiencing poverty, because this is a perspective that is needed to make sure that whatever policies we design at all levels, be it EU level, member states, regional involvement of those who are concerned most, can make the design more appropriate to fit the circumstances of people experiencing poverty. I have next slide gives a bit of a zoom on the principles for effective anti-poverty policies. I have mentioned that. I will not dwell too much on it, except for invitation for you to have a closer look. The next few slides are on European Child Guarantee, and here we are obviously getting closer to the topic of the call. Strengthening of the Child Guarantee is integral part of the package. It is a Commission communication as well, outlining what we want to do and what we invite our partners, member states, and other to contribute with. We are obviously quite concerned about very little progress towards the child poverty reduction target. The child poverty levels are still high and not declining, which is something that we will be looking at very closely, and hopefully with all the various actions that we will be putting forward, including this call, eventually will impact on child poverty rates, though we are aware that this is obviously something that might take time before you can actually see the impact in the figures. The next slide shows a few examples. Even the further slide shows few examples on the focus on strengthening of the child guarantee. Scaling out access to services, that's the key of the strengthening. Looking at how we can implement better, and for example, how we can ensure the transition from child guarantee to adulthood, how we can better link this with the youth guarantee policy tool. So this is something that will be on our radar very soon. And to this end, we're preparing different guidances, toolkits. We will speak with youth guarantee, child guarantee coordinators to make sure that we can jointly come up with something that is useful. The next slide would show few actions on funding and governance. We want to put together also a compendium of good practices to inspire works of member states and their different authorities, be it region, local, on what is being done elsewhere in terms of implementing the guarantee. And obviously this very call itself that we speak about today. Last element on the next slides covers the proposal for Council recommendation on fighting housing exclusion. You will see on the next slide the policy context, and I think this is something also relevant for child guarantee, because access to housing is one of the services covered by the child guarantee. We're aware that there is still a relatively high number of children or families with children that are homeless, not necessarily living in the streets, but living in a temporary accommodations without a stable roof over their head. So this is part of the recommendation or the policy that we want to cover in this process. We have European Platform on Combating Homelessness, by the way, meeting next week, which is active in this area, and we believe that we can bring in some changes to the better. Again, probably something that will take more time to be reflected on the ground, but we need to put our attention to this. On the last slide, you will see the objectives. We want to support member states in preventative actions as well, not only addressing housing exclusion, but preventative actions, looking at how we can better identify those at risk and provide early support before they actually experience housing exclusion issues, and all this with a person-centered, housing-led and integrated policies. So this is the last slide of my presentation. Actually, on the thank you slide, you will also see some links to the documents that I have mentioned. So feel free to explore. And now I will give the floor back to colleagues to really focus on the call itself. I hope that today's session will be very useful, that will be inspiring, that you will make sure that all the answers will be provided, and that we will eventually get a lot of interesting and useful proposals to strengthen the governance and implementation of the child guarantee in the participating countries. So best of luck to the preparation of projects, and we are very much looking forward to work with you in implementing them. Thank you, and have a good session.
Thank you, Iji, for the presentation. This presentation, as long with all materials for this event, will be shared with you in a few forthcoming days. So don't worry, you will get all the information. And now, before we move on to more technical presentations, I'd like to invite Simona from European Commission to give a presentation of the background on the second strand of the call.
Good morning. Many thanks, Ina. Thank you for the invitation. I will try to quickly remind some of the elements that maybe our participants know very well as practitioners in this field. So we can move on with the slides. I will shortly present the context for Roma young population in the EU. As you know, Roma is the Europe's largest ethnic minority with a relatively young population comparing with the median age in the EU. As you know, we are facing older population in the EU, but compared to that, Roma population is a very young group. They continue to face still poverty, social exclusion, discrimination, and anti-Gypsyism, and a lot of barriers to education and employment still in 2026. Although they represent a very important source of talent in the labor market, and that's why we all know that investing in Roma youth can be a very important boost for the labor market in the EU, and also a very important social inclusion and economic aspect. Moving further in the next slide. As you know, in the strand, the Union of Equality, the European Commission put in place in 2020 the EU Roma Strategic Framework for Equality, Inclusion and Participation, which brought a shift from integration alone to equality, inclusion and participation for Roma population with a focus on fighting discrimination and anti-Gypsyism, empowerment and participation, and also socioeconomic inclusion and employment. For the first time, we have introduced some targets by 2030, and the implementation of the strategy are monitored in every country, and the reports are published every 2 years. Moving forward, the next slide, some elements of policy frameworks put in place at EU level. As you know, the European Pillar of Social Rights with the Principle 4, active support to employment, the Youth Guarantee, then the Reinforced Youth Guarantee in 2020, some Council recommendations and conclusions that you will have here listed refer specifically to Roma for equality, inclusion and participation, then a specific one on desegregation and adequate housing, and also addressing segregated settlement, and also in 2024 specific council conclusions on access to services. Of course, the anti-poverty strategy package that was presented is also relevant for the Roma population, with a common objective of all these initiatives to improve access to employment opportunities for vulnerable young people, more specifically Roma. In the next slide, you have some data. Comparing data, the source is the FRA Roma survey, is the only solid data source that we have in details regarding the Roma population in the EU and also in neighboring countries. From the selected, so the report is available online. Of course, you can consult it and read it in details. The last one refers to 2024. And here, as you can see, we have some numbers concerning the employment rate, at risk of poverty, social exclusion, young people need, so not in employment, education or training, severe material deprivation, and also education rates, which, I mean, you will see that the differences are very, very important. So these gaps have to be still addressed by 2030. In the next slide, you see a more the focus on the needs, which is the population target for the call. As you can see, the Roma need rate is much higher than the average need rate in EU, 56 compared to 11, which comes with also, of course, a long-term unemployment risk, increased poverty, skill loss, and a lower economic participation. This is why we have underlined that this is a major untapped labor market potential which has to be further developed. In the next slide, I have, of course, compared a bit the specific challenges regarding the Roma needs with also the tailored approaches that are needed, which come, of course, in continuation with the scope of this call. We have multiple and interconnected challenges regarding early school living, low education attainment, housing insecurity, discrimination, limited access to services, care responsibilities, skill mismatches, and low registration with employment and social services. So as a result, we have seen that traditional labor market interventions often fail to reach the most vulnerable, in this case, Roma needs. That's why tailored approaches have to be put in place with some different support, like touch interventions for some, intensive and long-term support for others, and also outreach work, community-based intervention, partnership with trusted NGOs in the community, local and territorial targeted and individualized activation pathways. Moving forward, as I have mentioned, the EU Roma strategic framework came with some employment targets. As regarding the employment rates, to reduce employment gap between Roma and the general population by at least 50%, to reduce gender employment gap among Roma by at least 50%. As you know, women Roma are very much affected by reduced access to employment and education, and reduce the share of young people who are NEET by at least 50%. So all these targets are very relevant for your project to be presented for the goal. Moving further, in terms of expected impact, it is very important to have all the three elements in mind: economic, social, and also the policy impact to be foreseen. Of course, to increase labor force participation, to use this existing talent to contribute to addressing labor and skills shortages, and reduce welfare dependency and higher tax revenues. For the social impact, it is very much linked to reduce poverty, as we have mentioned, have greater social inclusion and community participation, also improve the trust in the administration and public services in general, and reduce discrimination and exclusion. As regards the policy impact, this can bring also stronger evidence on what works for Roma labor market activation. As I have mentioned before, traditional methods may be not always working for specific groups. Have a better cooperation between employment services, social services, NGOs, and Roma communities, and bring scalable social innovation models. I think we have reached the end of the presentation, if I'm not wrong. Thank you very much. Have a good session today. I will be also available in case you have further questions regarding the policy framework for Roma. Thank you.
Thank you, Simona. So now we will be moving to a more technical presentation of the requirements under the call. We will present general requirements at first under the first strand and then under the second strand of the call. Should you have should you have any questions related to any requirements of the call, please do not hesitate to use the chat box. Please do not hesitate to use the chat box, or for more specific questions, would like to invite you to send your questions to dedicated emails, ecg@socialinnovation.eu or romaneets@socialinnovation.eu. And also, after this event, we will publish all questions and answers next to the FAQ sections on the call web page. So now I'd like to invite my colleague Rima to present requirements for eligible participants and project under the first strand, Strengthening European Child Guarantee. Rima?
Yes, good morning or good afternoon to everyone, depending on where you are. I hope you can hear me well and see me well. I'm Rima Sarmantita Banula. I am a project coordinator at European Competence Center for Social Innovation, and I will once again highlight that I will present and concentrate specifically on the strand 1 of the call, which is strengthening the European Child Guarantee national governance systems. And my aim is, of course, to provide an overview on specific activities, outcomes, essential elements of application, and I will give some practical recommendations while preparing the project ideas. So I hope it will be really helpful. It will take around 25 minutes. So I invite to begin with presentation, and can we please move to second slide on information in short on strand 1. So call budget allocated to strand 1 is 12 million euros. Grant is estimated to be between 800,000 and 2 million euros per project. It is constituting not more than 80% of the project's total budget. So co-financing of 20% will be required. So as well, this does not preclude the submissions of applications that request amounts which are smaller or larger, with smaller or larger budgets, and it will be also assessed. However, there is a strict prohibition of double funding from EU budget. The same cost cannot be financed twice by EU funds. So this is an important message here. So projects are expected to have duration of 18 to 24 months, and it is allowing sufficient time to generate meaningful results. So funding regarding the form of grant will be provided in the lump sum grant. This means that payments are linked to the completion of agreed work packages and achieved deliverables rather than to reimbursement of individual expenses. And more on that, my colleagues will also present later on in the session. And another important point is that only consortia are eligible to participate and to apply, and individual organizations cannot submit proposals on their own. So I will return to the consortium composition requirements later on in the presentation as well. So can we please move to the timeline before looking at the substance of the call? So the call was launched on 6th of May, and it marked the beginning of the application period. Applicants will have to until 30th of September 2026 to submit and prepare their proposals. Following the submission deadline, applications will undergo an assessment process, which is expected to take place between October 2026 and January 2027, and grant agreements are planned to be signed in April 2027. So overall, the timeline provides applicants with nearly 4 months to prepare proposals. Can we please move to the next slide? We are moving to the central question of the strand 1. What is the objective of strand 1? And the objective of this strand is to support transnational projects which aim at testing new approaches and transferring or scaling up social innovations that strengthen the governance and implementation of the European Child Guarantee, ensuring children in need have access to key services. So projects may test new solutions, transfer successful practices from other contexts, from one context to another, for example, whether it's a territorial or a different sector, or scale up proven approaches to reach more beneficiaries. That is, for example, expanding the scope of a small-scale new solution to, let's say, an upper level of, for example, from local to regional or national or a European level, and of course, in order to reach a higher number of beneficiaries. But of course, these efforts should focus on the areas covered by the European Child Guarantee. It was briefly presented earlier, but I would like to highlight a few points here as well. And can we please move to next slide? Thank you. So the European Child Guarantee recognizes that the child poverty is multidimensional. Therefore, it focuses on 5 key areas that are essential for children's well-being, development, and social inclusion. So these key areas include free early childhood education and care, free education that includes school-based activities and at least one healthy meal each school day, free healthcare, healthy nutrition, and adequate housing. So projects under the strand 1 should contribute to improving access to one or more of these areas for children in need. And the next question is how this can be done in practice. So let's therefore look to another slide at the types of activities that can be supported under this call. And while applicants are encouraged to propose activities best suited to their specific context, to describe their ideas in addressing call objective, the following 7 categories of activities should be covered. I know the slide looks a bit busy, but I will go through each of the set of activities separately and will present with some examples. So first category of activities is identification and framing of challenges to establishing and delivering integrated service delivery models. So, for example, activities may include conducting a mapping of barriers that prevent children in need from accessing key services, analyzing systemic challenges, or collecting any other relevant qualitative or quantitative data from relevant stakeholders. Activities, the second set of activities is devoted for scaling up the integrated service delivery models of the European Child Guarantee and improving outreach to children in need. For example, activities may include facilitating collaboration, including through the exchange of IT solutions, which is important, at engaging and bringing together key stakeholders relevant to the European Child Guarantee. For example, establishing structured cooperation mechanisms such as working groups, co-creation platforms, or organizing joint workshops and other type of capacity building activities. So activities under the third set of activities is devoted to piloting integration of services on the ground for a specific target group, and this is foreseen through testing or scaling up viable solutions for integrated delivery of services. And the action can, for example, focus on the interaction of the European Child Guarantee and Youth Guarantee in supporting the children in transition to adulthood. Now moving to the fourth set of activities, which is also devoted to scaling up and identifying proven social innovation models that are that is designing effective methods for scaling up and working towards mainstreaming of social innovation, the ultimate aim. So, for example, this may involve reviewing existing practices, assessing their relevance, engaging in knowledge exchange activities, adapting selected models to new contexts, and preparing, of course, stakeholders and systems for the replication or expansion or integration of those selected models. Okay, so now we're moving to the fifth set of activities, which is improving monitoring and evaluation systems to allow for evidence-based policy making. So this is concentrated around the direction into policy. So, for example, activities may include strengthening or improving national monitoring and evaluation systems to support the central coordination of policies addressing child poverty, or identifying efficient ways for data collection and sharing, gathering feedback from children in need and their families and other relevant stakeholders. Now, activities under set of activities under number 6 and 7 are devoted for mutual learning. First, under activity set number 6, it's promoting mutual learning in addressing child poverty and monitoring across the participating EASY countries, the listed countries of the call. So, for example, this involves knowledge exchange, peer learning, capacity building activities among those relevant stakeholders. And the final 7th set of activities is also devoted to mutual learning events, and those organized by the European Competence Center for Social Innovation, as mutual learning is really encouraged between beneficiaries, and it is planned so far to organize 3 to 4 mutual learning events during the implementation of projects, where maximum of 2 events will be physical events and 2 online events. The physical events provisionally might take place in Vilnius and Brussels. Therefore, such activities, participation in mutual learning events should be also foreseen in project proposals. So this was a brief overview of activities under this call. For a detailed description of activities and more explicit examples, I invite applicants to refer to call condition section 2.4. And I would like to move to expected outcomes of this call. So can we please, yes, thank you. So while projects may implement different activities that are best suited to implement the project idea, however, all those activities are expected to contribute to main outcomes. And there are 3 categories of those outcomes, where first is strengthened governance and coordination for the implementation of European Child Guarantee. So this means strengthening the role of Child Guarantee coordinators, improving cooperation between public authorities, and building capacity of relevant stakeholders. Second, it's improved access to and integration of services for children in need. So projects should help reduce barriers, improve coordination between service providers, and ensure that more children receive effective support. And of course, third, which is evidence-based policy recommendations. So projects should generate evidence, strengthen monitoring systems, and produce recommendations that can support policy reforms and, of course, the wider uptake of successful solutions. Also, some documented results are expected of those social innovation models or innovative solutions that have been implemented and proved to be working, so it can be further scaled. Yes, so more explicit examples and detalization of the outcomes foreseen is also provided in the call conditions section 2.5. So I also invite applicants to review this section. So can we please move the slides, and I would like to present essential elements of the application. Because beyond the activities and expected outcomes, applicants should also pay attention to several essential elements. that are included and highlighted in the call conditions, and it should be reflected throughout the proposal that is or will be planned. So these elements, because these elements describe what a strong project should look like. So for example, projects should be based on a clear conceptual framework. That's number one. So demonstrate the relevance of the proposed social innovation, and this is especially relevant for projects focusing on the transfer and scaling up of proven social innovation models, and of course involve strong transnational partnership. Proposals should also engage a diverse range of stakeholders, adopt people-centered approach, which means that not only children but also their families should be included, and of course include mechanisms for measuring the expected project impact. And finally, applicants should also consider how results will be communicated, sustained, and potentially scaled up beyond the lifetime of the project. So together, these elements provide some kind of a framework for designing high-quality projects and are also linked to the evaluation criteria, and this will be presented also later on in the session. Can we please now move to eligible participants section, because developing a high-quality proposal requires not only a strong project concept, but also a well-structured partnership. So here in this slide, I will review the requirements for eligible participants. And so what are those eligible participants? So first of all, an applicant, which is the coordinator, or co-applicants and associated partners must be legal entities. So that is public or private bodies. It must be established in one of the eligible countries, and those are EU member states and non-EU countries. And the list is provided, which is Iceland, Norway, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Moldova, Montenegro, Serbia, and Ukraine. While collecting registrations, we have received a few questions, and there was a question on Albania and Switzerland participation in the call. However, those countries are not listed countries, therefore they are not eligible. So I hope I addressed the question for participants. And something else to add, that is that natural persons cannot be applicants, so only co-applicants or associated partners, so this only legal entities can participate, and international organizations can only participate in project as associated partner. And would like to extend on the consortium setup in the following slide, which has more specific consortium setup requirements that apply under Strand 1. A short reminder that this is applicable for Strand 1. So only consortia is eligible, as mentioned earlier, and consortium must include an applicant, which is the coordinator, and at least 2 co-applicants. So now the consortium must include an applicant, the coordinator of the consortium, which is the National Child Guarantee Coordinator, established in a EU member state, and namely this will be the organization within which the National Child Guarantee Coordinator is established. Would like to draw your attention that each National Child Guarantee Coordinator can submit only one application as the coordinator, in the role of the coordinator. And for co-applicants, you can see 2 groups listed here, as at least 2 co-applicants are required, one on the left and one on the right. So looking at the one on the left, as co-applicants could be at least 1 National Child Guarantee Coordinator, which is established in an EU member state, but it must be other than that of the coordinator. Or alternatively, it can be a child guarantee contact point, a public body designated for central coordination of the implementation of policies addressing child poverty established in the listed countries that were earlier presented and can be found in the call documents. And looking to the second set of co-applicants on the right, it is at least 1 regional and or local public authority responsible for the implementation of policies addressing child poverty, or a non-governmental non-profit organization that delivering social services or enabling access to goods and services related to the implementation of policies addressing child poverty. For both of those on the right, they must be established in the same country as the applicant or one of the co-applicants. So geographical location is relevant here within this call. So this was the minimum requirements of consortium composition. However, consortium is encouraged to include additional co-applicants or associated partners, but the list is exhaustive that is provided in the call conditions. So that is other child guarantee contact points or other national level public authorities which are implementing policies for vulnerable children, or eligible regional and or local public authorities or NGOs. So as mentioned, the list is exhaustive and detailed in the call conditions for a review if required. Now, can we please move to another important aspect, which is applicants validation. And this is important while planning ahead and preparing organizations' information. So before submitting the application, applicants should verify the status of their organization, and if the applicant's or co-applicant's entity has already been validated by the Central Validation Services. And as you can see here, the status highlighted in green, which is validated and has the participation identification code, the entity's registration certificate may not be submitted. However, several statuses exist, such as provided here, sleeping or declared. In this situation, an applicant will need to provide company organizations registration documents with application. So as my colleague mentioned, session materials will be shared with you, and for your convenience, we have included the direct link where the status of organization can be checked and assessed. So this would be it about some preparatory work, and I have some other recommendations for, can we please move to another slide? And this is more focusing on preparing the application. So having reviewed the key more administrative requirements and content requirements, I would also like to provide few practical recommendations for preparing a strong application. And here we present some kind of visual structure that I believe will help you imagine and predict how the project structure will look like. So first, the overall project description shall be organized in coherent work packages. As you can see, the first column in this visual. So each work package should have clear objective, set of activities, so going from left to right in the slide, and corresponding deliverables. So the number of work packages, of course, should be well justified. And among other work packages, the project should include at least 3 mandatory work packages that are listed in the example as well, which is project coordination management work package, dissemination and communication work package, and work package focusing on strand 1 activities that were discussed earlier. So work packages of a long duration, for example, such as coordination management, may be split into several work packages of shorter duration. This is for financial planning, important for financial planning, and this recommendation is to split it over the reporting periods and, for example, 12 months of the project. So each work package as well may have multiple activities, as you see here in the example, and deliverables. But among the other deliverables that will be planned, the coordinator will have to provide 1 mandatory deliverable, which is the final report, lessons learned, and future plans. And this can be found, the template can be found with the call documents as an annex. Now, following, it is also highly recommended, and it is essential that within application, clear links between activities and deliverables are demonstrated. As you can see, the connection between the middle and the right columns. It is recommended to plan a reasonable number of deliverables, as they will become contractual obligations and will need to be achieved within project implementation. And it is related to the payments in lump sum projects because they are directly tied to completing specific work packages. And work package is only considered completed when all activities are implemented and all deliverables are achieved. I think there will be more information on the specifics of the lump sum funding, but for now, I hope visualization and a few practical insights will help to construct your projects. And I have one or two additional slides for inspiration and planning of the project. So can we please move to the following slide, which is on useful resource, which is Social Innovation Match Database. So this database is a really useful source of inspiration for applicants. It contains examples of social innovations. There are nearly 300 social innovations from over 27 countries and on 16 different topics. So it may help identify practices that could be tested, transferred or scaled, and even under this call as well. The successful projects under this call will also be required to showcase their social innovation by submitting it to this database. And really, for stakeholders, for interested parties, this might help search for innovation, identify the organizations whose work is, for example, source of inspiration for your organization, or search for potential partners for European calls, for transnational projects. And now the other and final slide is on how to actually access this database. And as mentioned, with session materials, the direct links to the website, to the video introducing the Social Innovation Match database, and contacts where you can inquire more about this database will be provided. As well, you can see QR code in this slide, and it can be accessed even instantly. So I hope it will be really useful resource for you. And with that, I conclude the presentation. I would like to thank you all for your attention, and we really hope that this overview helped clarify the main requirements and expectations of the call strand 1. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rima, for your presentation. Naturally, that some additional clarifications might be required, as we presented only general overview of a strand 1. So one more time, I'd like to remind you to use either chat box or send more specific, some pertinent to your situation question to the dedicated email ecg@socialinnovationplus.eu. Also, if you go to a course web page and press support for applicants button, you will be redirected to the resources page, and you can find some guidance document which will help you to draft an application, to draft a detailed budget table. Also, there is some guidance on lump sum funding scheme, which might be new for some of you. So yeah, thank you, Rima, one more time. And now let's move on to the second strand of the call. It's focusing on support for employment of Roma NEETs. And I'd like to invite my colleague Mintare to give this presentation.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Good to hear you all. So as already mentioned, my name is Mintare. I'm project coordinator at the European Competence Center for Social Innovation. And I will now present the main aspects of the strand 2 of this call, which is supporting access to the labor market for Roma NEETs. And during this presentation, I will basically cover the aim, eligible participants, expected activities and outcomes of this strand of the call. So we can move on with the next slide. So why this call is needed? To understand the importance of this trend, we first need to look to the situation of the Roma NEETs in Europe, which is some of the most vulnerable ones in the European Union. And that was already emphasized during the presentation of the representative from the European Commission, Simona. So I will try to be very quick and not too repetitive. However, I wanted to highlight once again that according to the recent data from the EU Agency for Fundamental Rights, in 2021, around 56% of Roma aged 16 to 24 were NEETs. This means that more than half of young people from Roma community were outside employment, education, or training. And this rate is almost 5 times higher than the European Union average. And in several countries, such as Slovakia, Hungary, Spain, Ireland, Czechia, the situation is even more challenging. So we can say that these figures illustrate the structural barriers that many Roma young people face, including discrimination, limited education opportunities, poverty, social exclusion, and weak links with labor market institutions. And as a result, we can see that traditional employment measures often fail to reach or effectively support this target group. Next slide, please. And this is where social innovation becomes important. So this trend is based on the idea that existing approaches are often insufficient and that new solutions need to be developed and tested. Social innovation allows organizations to experiment with new ways of working, especially by strengthening cooperation between public authorities, employment services, civil society organizations, employers, and of course, Roma communities themselves. The objective of social innovation is not only to help individual young people find jobs, but also to create better systems and partnerships that can generate sustainable change in the future. Next slide. So let me briefly summarize the key information about the strand 2 of the call. So projects can last between 18 and 24 months. The expected grant size ranges from 8,100 euros to 2 million euros. And that constitutes 80% of the whole project budget, with 20% of co-financing, as well, that was mentioned before by my colleague Rima in the previous presentation. So the total budget for this trend is 5 million euros, and funding will be provided through a lump sum grant, meaning beneficiaries are not reimbursed based on actual costs, but on the successful completion of agreed project activities and deliverables. This part also will be presented later on by my other colleague. One more thing that I wanted to mention is that only consortia are eligible to apply, to participate, which means that individual organizations cannot submit proposals on their own. Let's move on. Next slide. Regarding the timeline, it is, again, exactly the same as of the first strand. So the call opens on the 6th of May. The deadline for submission of applications is the 30th of September. The assessment process is expected to take place between October of this year and January 2027. Grant agreements are expected to be signed in April 2027. So summarizing, therefore, applicants have several months to prepare strong partnerships and robust project proposals. Next slide. Okay, let's move to the objective of the call, of the strand 2 of the call, which can be summarized in 3 key points. First, projects must test innovative approaches that improve access to employment for Roma NEETs through tailored activation strategies. Second, they should generate evidence about what works and what does not work. And third, they should develop solutions that have the potential to be scaled up and integrated into public policies. Next slide. So one of the most important aspects of Strand 2 is that social experimentation is mandatory. But what is social experimentation and how does it really differ from social innovation? Basically, shortly said, social experimentation is about trying out the social innovation on a small scale to see if it actually works and creating rigorous conditions for assessment for this social impact that was created. So projects are expected to test those innovative solutions in real life settings and measure their effectiveness and generate evidence. This means that proposals must clearly explain what is innovative, why it is expected to work, and how success will be measured. So the social experimentation process consists of, let's say, several interconnected stages. First, an innovative intervention is designed. Then, second, it is tested with real Roma NEET participants. Third, the intervention is evaluated using robust monitoring and evaluation methods, and evidence is generated regarding its effectiveness, whether it was effective or not that much. And finally, projects develop a scaling up strategy so that successful approaches can be replicated and or integrated into public policies. So this cycle is at the very heart of the Strand, and it should be visible throughout the entire project design. Next slide, please. The second strand of the call specifies a number of mandatory activities that all proposals should include. So projects must begin by mapping the challenges and barriers faced by Roma NEETs. They must then design tailored job pathway support and activation model for Roma NEETs. And basically that is done through strengthened stakeholder collaboration. Projects are also expected to conduct outreach and matching activities, helping Roma young people to connect with employment opportunities. Employment and self-employment support measures are also required, as well as activities related to skills development. And also, projects must develop a scaling up strategy, establish monitoring and evaluation systems, raise awareness, and lastly, include participation in mutual learning events organized by the European Competence Center for Social Innovation. So as already as well mentioned before, those would be 2 on-site and 2 online events during the usual 2 years of implementation of the projects. These activities are not optional. They form the core structure of every project proposal. However, of course, other activities can also be included depending on the individual needs of each proposal. Yeah, next slide, please. The target group. The target group is clearly defined. Proposals must focus on Roma NEETs that are aged between 15 and 29 years. So a key challenge is that many members of this group are difficult to reach through traditional public systems. Also, the majority is not registered with employment services, educational institutions, or other existing public services. And for this reason, projects are expected to develop targeted outreach approaches and build trust within Roma communities. Also important to highlight that successful engagement of the target group will be a critical factor in project success. Next slide. Also wanted to comment some things about employment support. So there are minimum requirements regarding employment outcomes. Employment placements should last at least 6 months. These jobs may be either full-time or part-time and must provide at least minimum wage based on national rules of every country. Projects may also use different support measures, including wage subsidies, mentoring, coaching, or on-the-job training. And to summarize, the emphasis is not only on obtaining employment, of course, but also on sustaining employment over time, because long-time integration into the labor market is the ultimate goal. Next slide. So the expected outcomes reflect this long-time perspective. Projects should contribute to improved access to employment and self-employment for Roma NEETs. They should support job retention for a minimum period of 6 months. And another important outcome is the development of evidence-based policy recommendations that promote more inclusive labor market policies. And this trend also encourages innovative outreach models, including the use of digital and IT tools where it is appropriate. Next slide. The central elements are also exactly the same as the ones that were previously commented for the strand 1. So I will just mention them very quickly. So these are conceptual framework, relevance of social innovation, transnational partnership, diversity of stakeholders, people-based approach, impact measurement and management, dissemination and communication, and sustainability and scaling pathway. Let's move on with the slide. Now let's talk about the consortium setup. First of all, only consortia are eligible, and each consortium must consist of a coordinator and at least 2 applicants, all legal entities. Associate partners do not count towards this minimum requirement, so even if you have associate partners, still 2 co-applicants will be required. And in addition, these consortium members must represent at least 2 different eligible countries. There might be more, but 2 is the minimum requirement. Next slide, please. Now more specific requirements, and let's start by the coordinator. So the coordinator has a very specific and well-defined profile, I would say, because it must be either an EU-level Roma network as a separate legal entity, or a national-level Roma organization established as a non-profit legal entity in a EU member state. And its primary mission must be clearly related to Roma rights, policy engagement, and community empowerment. Also, applicants will need to provide founding documents demonstrating that they meet these requirements that I just mentioned. And furthermore, what is also important is that each national Roma NEET coordinator may submit only 1 application as coordinator. They may be participants of other proposals, but coordinators just in 1. Next slide, please. So the consortium must also include at least 1 organization registered in a EU member state in which the EU-level network is operating, or the national-level Roma organization is established. This is for the co-applicants. So this co-applicant should be directly connected to labor market policy implementation. And this may include public employment services, job centers, private employment agencies, or public authorities responsible for labor, education, and social inclusion policies, and also founding documents of this entity clearly stating the required objectives must be also provided at the application stage. Next slide. In addition, the consortium must include at least one other co-applicant from an eligible country, which is either from an EU member state or from the listed third countries, which are Iceland, Norway, Ukraine, Moldova, Serbia, Kosovo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, or Montenegro. I also wanted to mention because we received 2 questions whether Albania and Switzerland are eligible to participate. So the answer is no, they do not participate in these proposals because they are not eligible. The requirement for the third co-applicant is not as strict as you can see as a for coordinator or the first co-applicant. This entity can be a private company, NGO, vocational education and training provider, public authority, employment service, or basically another relevant organization. So very quickly summarizing, at least 2 co-applicants are required, and there is no maximum number of participants as co-applicants. There can be as many as necessary for a proposal and your idea's implementation. Next slide, please. Now let's move on to mandatory deliverables. There are 2 mandatory deliverables in total. This means that all projects will have to report on them. The first one is a report on mapping, outreach, and matching activities, which must be submitted within 8 months after the project starts. And the second one is final report entitled Lessons Learned and Future Plans, and it is delivered at the end of your project. Also, the templates of these deliverables are available for your use so that it would be easier, more structured for you to deliver these. And as for the other ones, other deliverables, they are created and customized according to the project activities, and the applicants are free to define them. Next slide. Okay, so thank you. I would also like to mention some more things like key success factors for applications. Firstly, clear theory of change. Second, strong innovation logic. Third, meaningful involvement from our communities. Fourth, diverse stakeholder ecosystem. And fifth, robust impact measurement and evaluation. So these aspects will be critical for demonstrating the added value for the proposal. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope this overview has clarified the main aspects of this strand and the expectations for applicants.
Thank you, Mintare. So as you can see from what was presented, what we have 2 different sets of requirements under 2 different strands. Mainly, there are different activities, different expected outputs, and different requirements for applicants, co-applicants, and associated partners. However, what I would like to mention that organizations which participate in projects under Strand 1 can also participate in a project under Strand 2 as co-applicants or associated partners, of course, if they meet requirements, and vice versa. Also, entities participating under Strand 2 might participate in project under Strand 1 if they meet specific requirements. Another thing what I'd like to mention that there's a different budget distributions for projects under Strand 1 and Strand 2. And we have 12 million euro for project under Strand 1 and 5 million euro for projects under Strand 2. And what we expect is to fund at least 6 projects under Strand 1 and at least 2 projects under Strand 2. And also what we as a granting authority reserve the right not to reward all available funds under one strand or another strand. We can redistribute them between strands depending on a number of applications received and quality of applications. So yeah, one more time, I'd like to remind you that if you have any questions, please send us them to dedicated emails. And for Roma NEETs, this email is romaneets@socialinnovationplus.eu. So now let's have a short 10 minutes virtual coffee break, and let's meet 25 minutes to 12. Welcome back. Next set of presentations will be focused on financial aspects of this call, as well as assessment and selection procedures. Both of this let's say aspects, financial selection is applicable for projects under both strands. So I'd like to invite first my colleague Agle, who will present the financial aspect of the call and a lump sum funding scheme.
Thank you, Ina. I hope everyone can hear me well. My name is Agle, and today I will guide you through the financial aspects of this call. And mostly I will focus on how funding works and how you should structure your budget effectively. Next slide, please. So we will go and cover several of topics, and some of them will have a focus on strand 1 and strand 2. You will, if you follow my talk, you will understand that. I will not go into this in detail, so we can just directly go to the next slide. Yes, so Sophia already asked in the chat why we use this form of grant, lump sum, meaningly. Lump sum model is increasingly used across different major European Union programs, such as Horizon Europe, Erasmus+, ESF+, Interreg. The focus is shifted here from cost reporting to delivering results. So it reflects, I would say, a broader European Union trend shifting towards simpler, performance-based funding models, allowing us to reduce administrative burden and prioritizing successful project implementation. So what matters most is what you deliver, not what you spend. Let's move to the next slide. Why? Why we want to use this model? So basically, as I mentioned, the focus here is on the content. We want to simplify the errors and reduce the financial error rate. And what is important here to remember, I would say that once agreed, the lump sum will not change, even if the price changes. So this is very important to take into account. And the accuracy at the proposal stage is critical. So exactly now, in the months when you are preparing your application, it's very important to focus on accurately calculating your budget. So then we can work in the case of success of setting the lump sums. Let's move to the next slide. What is the scheme? How does the whole process work? Applicants submit a proposal by completing the application form on our eSINIS platform and indicating the approximations of the real costs in the detailed budget table, Annex 1, which can be found on our website. As a second step, lump sums are established during the evaluation of the application for each grant individually. As a third step, individual lump sums broken down by work packages and by beneficiaries are fixed in the grant agreement. And then eventually, the fourth step, at the reporting stage, lump sums are accepted once all work has been carried out and all deliverables are reached. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the total project lump sum consists from different work packages glued all together. And there's also break it by the participants, so by all beneficiaries. Lump sums are established on the basis of detailed budget table. So it's very important that you create and submit a very well-prepared detailed budget table. And these lump sums are also established by assessing the eligibility of these amounts requested and activities proposed. Once again, the funding rate of this call is 80%, meaning that the remaining 20% of the project costs need to be co-funded by the consortium. Next slide, please. We can look at the examples when the work package is considered completed and lump sum is accepted and when it isn't. In the example number 1, we can see that both activities are completed and deliverables are submitted and approved, meaning that then this work package is marked as completed and the whole lump sum assigned to this work package is accepted. If, for example, you complete some activities only partially or you don't submit deliverables, this work package cannot be completed and lump sum cannot be declared. Incomplete work packages can only be completed and declared in the final reporting period. And if a case happens that the work package is still incomplete at the end of the project, the lump sum share is paid partially in line with the degree of completion, and the grant then is reduced by the corresponding amount. The decision on the partial amount is taken case-by-case basis. There is no rule of thumb. Let's move to the next slide. So what would that mean in practice? For example, you plan to do study visits, and then deliverable is 3 study visits. If upon reporting only 2 study visits have taken place, this work package cannot be considered completed, and the corresponding lump sum cannot be paid. It can only be completed when all work is completed. Partial completion, as I mentioned, is only possible at the end of the project. That's very important to understand, because in these projects, there will be periodic reporting in the middle of your project, and then you will not be able to declare partial completed work packages. Thus, I would like to encourage you to think through the structure of your work packages. You should set a reasonable number of activities and deliverables within your work package, and very important, split big chunks of work packages that are with long duration in reporting periods. So year 1 project management and year 2 project management, year 1 communication, year 2 communication. However, this not should lead to artificial splitting of work packages. Next slide, please. This is very tightly connected to the cash flow reminder. We noticed in our practice that very often project coordinators forget this rule, and then we have several issues in the mean of project implementation. The first pre-financing of your grant, if granted, will be 50% of the whole amount, meaning that you need to spend 70% of that first pre-financing in order to receive the full second pre-financing. It might look tricky in the very beginning, but when you need to think about structuring your work now in your detailed budget table, you should plan your work packages in a way that in the first year, you spend almost 35% of the total grant. Again, this often requires splitting big work packages such as management or communication into 2 and placing high-value activities early. We will share these slides with you, so you will be able to come back to it and think through your project. Next slide, please. Structure of the detailed budget table. You can find the detailed budget table now uploaded on our website. You will have a link here in the slides to the video tutorial, which is extremely beneficial. I really highly recommend to watch that video prior to working with the detailed budget table. It's a very smart document that is a very helpful tool for you to prepare your budget. There you will find different sheets and you will go through it. It's a very handy tool. Of course, it requires some work to do. And I will shortly explain you now how to do that. We can go to the next slide. Filling in the detailed budget table. Detailed budget table uses units to translate the real costs into a structured and comparable format, which will allow our evaluators to assess whether the proposed lump sums are realistic and justified. Unit cost here acts as a bridge between real costs and lump sum. When I think about it myself, think of it of like agreeing on a fixed price for building a house. You still need to calculate the bricks, you need to calculate the labor, the materials before setting the final price here. We have different categories in the detailed budget table, and I will quickly go through them. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, we have different categories for eligible costs here. We have a direct personal costs, category A. We have a purchase costs, category B. We have other cost categories. Here, it's very important that it's only relevant for the strand 2, where we have the subsidized employment. And then we have the indirect costs, which is a flat rate of 7%. They are not budgeted item by item, and they are intended for the general administrative expenses, such as office operations, support staff, utilities, equipment-related overhead. Examples are limited to normal office running costs, meaning that things like purchasing laptops or other equipment here is not allowed. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what costs are eligible here. To be eligible, all the costs in your projects must be linked directly to your project. They need to be necessary for achieving its objectives and incurred within the project period. They need to be reasonable, well justified, and compliant with the EU and national rules. You need to comment and justify all costs that you plan to have in your budget. Yes, and you can go through that. All this information is listed in our call conditions. Let's move to the next slide, and I will shortly tell you more about the personal costs. This might seem a little bit tricky in the beginning, but let me briefly explain you how you should calculate it. There are two key elements when thinking about direct personal costs: effort and cost per unit. First, effort. We measure effort in person months. 1 person month means one person working full-time for 1 month. To convert these working days into person months, we use the average. 1 month has 17.92 working days that are full days of work. So the formula is the effort is calculated by taking a total full-time equivalent days divided by 17.92. For example, if we have 2 researchers in your project and each work 10 days per month for 10 months, the total effort here equals to 11.16 full-time months. When we have this calculated, we go to the cost per unit. This is the average monthly salary for a cost per person in that role. We'll calculate it by taking the actual costs from the last 12 months and divide it by 12. So let's say if that one researcher annual costs is 46,000 euros, another researcher charges 50,000 euros, then the average will be 4,000 euros per month. So when we calculate all of this, then we go and put it in the detailed budget table. We can go to the next slide, please. Here you can see that with the blue arrow, you put the calculated 11.16 units and cost per unit is 4,000. When it comes to the categories of employees, you will be able to select the categories of employee positions in the detailed budget table, and it will be corresponding in the whole detailed budget table for all participating organizations. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yes, we kindly ask you to check all personal costs. They need to match the European Union dashboard by Horizon Europe. There will be a link in this presentation, so you need to ensure that all this work, the salaries you calculate do not exceed the Horizon Europe dashboard. Next slide, please. When it comes to travel, accommodation, and subsistence costs, we use the European Union decision from 2024. Again, there will be a table in the detailed budget table. Very, very helpful. You will only select from which country you are traveling to where and select the nights staying. We can go to the next slide. You will see that how it looks like here. So there will be a tab in the detailed budget table where you will be able to put all the travels there, and you will get the numbers already calculated. It's a very handy tool. What is very important to remember that there is a comment section, so you need to justify every trip you put there. You need to clearly explain it in the comments to which trip the trip is assigned, so to which activity, to which work package, so we understand and our evaluators can understand. So from this table, you will transfer the numbers to each beneficiary. Again, the video provided in the slide before is very, very useful in understanding how to work with the detailed budget table. Next slide, please. When it comes to other goods and services, you are free to schedule and put other goods and services, for example, hiring in experts to help you in your project, but it needs to comply with the national law in your country. So, for example, if a German partner needs to buy a service above 5,000 euros, they must follow their national procurement rules, such as requesting multiple offers and documenting the selection process. We will not be requesting to see that, but you need to follow these rules and other principles of transparency, non-discrimination, mutual acknowledgement, and equal standing. What is important to remember that purchases between beneficiaries are not accepted. And then again, when you want to plan more services than one, you need to calculate the average units. Let's go to the next slide. Here's just an example. We have 2 units for the average of 15,000 euros, so then the total amount is 30,000. Next slide, please. Again, Horizon Europe dashboard here comes as a handy tool for you. So please ensure that all the roles of your experts that you plan to have correspond to the activities and workload. Again, justifying every cost you put in the detailed budget table in a separate tab, comments. Next slide, please. IT solutions. It's a very usual cost category to have in the projects like this. So costs for development of IT tools or IT solutions, such as apps, can be assigned to either personal costs, so developers, or they can be a purchase of services included in the B category, purchase costs. However, equipment-related overhead examples are limited to normal office running costs. Again, by purchasing laptops or things like that are considered ineligible costs under this call. Next slide, please. Subsidized employment. That's highlighting providing the employment in the strand 2. It's not just an activity, it's a core objective of the strand 2 of this call, and projects under this strand are expected to directly support Roma needs. What measures are eligible? There are 2 main types. First is the subsidized or supported employment for at least 6 months, or on-the-job support, such as training, mentoring, coaching, and helping people to integrate and stay in work. When it comes to remuneration of these costs, there are a few important conditions. They must follow, first and foremost, the general eligibility criteria. The salary levels must be justified using official or verifiable sources, such as wage agreements or national statistics. And most importantly, each person must be employed for at least 6 months. Part-time work is allowed, but it must be reported in full-time equivalent terms. Next slide, please. How it will look like in the detailed budget table. If you don't have yet the employment providers, you must assign these costs to the coordinator. You will be able to include employment providers at the later stage or include them in the consortium as adding them as new beneficiaries. So you don't need to have employment providers as of now. If you plan to find them later, you must assign these costs to the coordinator at this step. Next slide, please. Yes, again, initial pre-financing will be 50% of the grant after the signature of the grant agreement and receiving the accession forms of all beneficiaries. The second pre-financing is around 30%, depending on the expenditure percent of the first pre-financing after the approval of the first periodic report. And then the payment of balance comes at the very end after approval of the final periodic report. Once again, the amount of second pre-financing depends on the lump sums declared by the coordinator. So you need to plan very smart here, making sure that big chunk of the grant, 35% mostly, is spent in the first year of the project. Next slide, please. Here again, we really want to stress this a lot. If you receive, for example, 1 million as your first pre-financing, which is 50% of the grant, and you should target to spend 700,000. Let's say you actually just spent 300,000, meaning then this difference of what you were supposed to spend and what you actually spent will be deducted from your next payment. So again, 35% of the total project grant should be planned to spend in the first year of the project to be able to get the full second pre-financing. Next slide, please. What are the mistakes? At this step of working on your PROSA proposal, we highly ask you to justify all requested amounts. Add a comment to each budget line. Describe in detail the activities covered under each work package. Make sure to provide detailed information about the travel, how many people travel, to which countries, how many days. Make sure to justify the costs of salaries foreseen in the employment, in the personnel costs and category B. So just write a comment to every budget line. Next slide, please. Again, including travel costs to participating in mutual learning events. This is very specific to our call. Participating in mutual learning events organized by the European Competence Center is mandatory. You need to include these costs in the detailed budget table, as they will not be reimbursed separately. We will not be booking you tickets and we will not booking you hotels to come to our meetings. Thus, you need to include these costs in your project. Another important thing is that you cannot include any cost associated to associated partners. They may not receive any costs. If they need to travel, they also cannot receive these costs. In case of external experts, travel expenses related to participation in the meetings are eligible. So you should include them at the service costs in the category B. Next slide, please. If there are main 3 points that I want you to leave from today, I think you already got the first point, that 35% of the total grant should be spent in the first year. You should plan your activities by project years. That's also a tip from us, not only by topic or theme. And again, you need to justify all costs clearly and consistently across your application. So think strategically, spending early, structure by year, and justify everything. And watch the video about the detailed budget table. I think that's it from me. Once again, we are here to answer your questions in both emails and also in the chat box. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Agla, for such detailed presentation. Indeed, lump sum scheme might be new to some of you, and but it's actually very easy when you get ahead of it. You just need to put quite a lot of emphasis to designing your budget. And then after the grant agreement in sight, you can kind of forget about it and focus on activities and deliverables. Your budget is directly linked to work packages, activities and deliverables. So when we talk about this, what you need to spend, not less than 70% of the first pre-financing, that means that you need complete work packages worth of this 70% in lump sums, like equivalent of lump sums. And completion of work packages at what you need to complete all activities and achieve all deliverables. So you can send us any additional questions if you have them regarding budget. Also, as Agla recommended, please watch the video on how to fill in DBT. Come back and read all our guidance on our webpage. But in any case, if there are any questions, please send us them. And also, we will be collecting all these questions. We will be publishing question and answers on the call's webpage. And also, we are planning to have the second info session. It's going to be 2 info sessions for each strand. And they will be based on questions which we receive from you during next month or so. So now let's move on to the assessment and selection of projects. And I want to invite my colleague Inga to give a presentation.
Hello, everybody. I hope you see me well and hear me well. I'm Inga Levichuta, one of the project coordinators, as well as my colleagues in the European Competence Center for Social Innovation. And today we'll be talking about the assessment and selection process for both of the strands of the call. So please know that's going to be covering both of the strands. And today, in the next following 20 minutes, we'll cover these topics, such as assessment and selection process overview. I'm just going to give you a general short overview. Then we will go deeper into the admissibility check and eligibility check, and also the expert assessment and award criteria. Also, I'll give you the requirements for operational and financial capacity, and surely the exclusion criteria. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in this slide, you see the graph, which presents the whole assessment and selection process. So everything starts from admissibility and eligibility check. Admissibility and eligibility check is done to verify compliance with very formal requirements set out in the call conditions. And applications which are found admissible and eligible then proceed to the expert assessment, so-called assessment against award criteria. And in this stage, your project is being evaluated in more depth. It means the idea of your planned intervention is being assessed by the experts already. Once these two steps are over, then the project selection committee makes a decision regarding projects to be funded and makes the recommendations. And then the final decision is made by the director of the granting authority. So this is the decision regarding the projects to be funded and the grant amounts allocated to them. And then we sign a grant agreement and you start implementing your project, monitoring it and monitoring the activities and deliverables. And now let's go to each stage one by one, and we'll see in detail what those stages involve. So next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. This is going to be a admissibility check, which is also again applicable for strand 1 and strand 2. To be admissible, your application must be readable, accessible, complete, and contain all the requested information. And here note that only the information and the documents that are requested will be considered during the assessment. And also the third point, your application must contain all the mandatory annexes. And here I would like to draw your attention to the slide. There is a screenshot of Annex 4. This is the template, which is, this is the document, the checklist, which is provided. And here you can check exactly which documents need to be submitted depending on the role on your role in the project. So either you're a coordinator or a co-applicant or associated partner. So please check this list to ensure that you are submitting all the necessary documents together with your application. Next slide, please. So what are those mandatory documents that need to be submitted? So of course, first of all, the application in itself, which needs to be filled in and submitted, already mentioned several times, online system SNS. And together with that application, you need to submit also the following documents, which is, for example, not for example, but a really important one is the detailed budget table, which is Annex 1. So my colleagues already talked about that. About this, it's an Excel file, you fill in, you submit it. Either then the list of the previous projects, which is Annex 5, or a public legal entity form, which is Annex 9. And here I would like to note, to clarify which one is when. So in all the cases when the coordinator is not a public entity, the Annex 5 needs to be submitted. But if the applicant, so to say the coordinator now of your consortium, is a public entity, then instead of the Annex 5, you're supposed to submit Annex 9. Then also it is necessary to submit the declaration of honor for beneficiaries, which is Annex 6. And this document needs to be signed by your legal representative. So here also note that Annex 6 needs to be submitted not only by the coordinator, by the applicant, but also by the co-applicants. Another document which is necessary is a declaration of professional competences. It's Annex 8, I'm sorry, where you have to fill in all the information about competences of the coordinator's team. And this is necessary in order to show that your team, the coordinator's team, has sufficient competences and qualifications required to implement the activities assigned to them. As well, what you have to submit together with your application is a registration certificate of your organization. And however, this is not necessary if you already have a validated PIC number. And also note this rule applies for all the applicants, co-applicants, and associated partners of your project. And actually, quite often we get the question about the consortium agreement. So if it's necessary to submit it together with the application. So no, it's not necessary to submit it. We don't have to prepare a template or something like that, but it is highly recommended also to submit it for your own assurance. Next slide, please. Some more aspects regarding admissibility check. So all the application need to be submitted in the Asana system, in the online Asana system, and by the deadline, which is mentioned here in the slide and also provided in the call conditions. And it means that all the applications submitted not via system in some other forms or after the deadline will be rejected automatically. So yeah, make sure really not to pass the deadline. Also, your application will be rejected if you do not submit at least one of the following documents that we talked already about them. So it's Annex 1, and Annex 5, and Annex 8. So please make sure that all these annexes are submitted together with your application. Next slide, please. Eligibility check is also applicable for Strand 1 and Strand 2. Next slide, please. So eligibility check. This is the step which is done after admissibility check. To be considered eligible, now further on, yeah, your application must meet all the requirements, which you can see here in the slide. And also they are listed in the call conditions. So please read them carefully. It's also written here in which one section in the chapter you can find these requirements. Please study carefully their call conditions. So, but first of all, your project to be eligible, your application must involve only eligible applicants, co-applicants, and associated partners. It also has to be submitted by a consortium that meets the set requirements. It cannot involve the legal entities subject to EU restrictive measures, which goes, I think, without saying. Also, it cannot exceed the indicated maximum project duration. It must pledge a contribution to the project from their own funds or funds from other sources. And also it has to be submitted by the applicant, so to say the coordinator of the consortium, who meets the operational capacity criteria. About the operational capacity criteria, we'll talk in the next slides. And also, to be considered eligible, your application, your project cannot propose a project that has already been funded from the EU budget or will receive such funding in the future. So really to avoid the double funding, and surely meets it has to meet the other requirements set out in the call conditions. And here also note that if just one eligibility requirement is not met, your application will be rejected. Next slide, please. And now let's look into the expert assessment, which, as I mentioned, is in more depth quality assessment of your application, of your project, of the intervention that you're proposing in the application. Next slide, please. Yeah, expert assessment, or so to say, the award criteria for it. All the applications that are found admissible and eligible in the steps that I mentioned before will proceed then to the award criteria assessment. And here note that the application submitted, this is really important, that the application submitted under each strand will be assessed according also to the criteria specific to that strand. So here in the big letters you see written the sections where you can find the particular criteria for the strand 1 and the strand 2. However, in general, under the score for both strands, we have 3 award criteria. So it's relevance, quality, and impact. And each criteria has a maximum number of points and has a threshold. So the maximum of total points that your application can score is 100 points, and the overall threshold is 60 points. Then know that the application will be rejected. This is really important. It will be rejected if it scores below the overall minimum threshold. So, for example, if it gets less than 60%, 60 points, I'm sorry, or also if it does not pass the minimum threshold score set for a respective award criteria. So for example, here where we have a relevance that the threshold is 25 points, if your application scores, if your project scores 24 points, it will also be rejected. Next slide, please. Yeah, and in this slide and in the following ones, you will see the award criteria one by one. Yeah, so the relevance and quality and impact. But here's the relevance award criteria, and it's going to be a general overview. So I really recommend you again to study the award criteria specific for each strand and the call conditions. And there you will find more detailed information. Other award criteria, they are a bit similar to, they are more similar from strand 1 to strand 2, but here they differ. However, not going to the detail, I'm going to say that basically the first award criteria relevance, yeah, under the aspects that will be assessed is the contribution, if your project will be assessed, if your project contributes well to the aim and activities of each strand. So we heard already my colleagues talked and presented the activities and aim of each strand. Then it will be assessed if it demonstrates a strong rationale for a proposed social innovation, or, for example, in the Roma needs in the strand 2, in case it's going to be the social experimentation, which is going to be assessed if it has a strong rationale. And also it will be assessed if it addresses the child poverty under the strand 1, or, for example, under the strand 2, if it addresses well the sustainable employment of Roma needs. And also it will be assessed if your project demonstrates alignment with other national, regional, and local strategies. Next slide, please. Here, the second award criteria, what we have is the quality, and it's the quality of your project design, implementation, and a team. So here, the same criteria applies for both strands. And also, you can see the maximum points that you can get, that your application can score, and the threshold points. You also see that the quality criteria also has underneath the 2 sub-criteria, which also has the different maximum points and the threshold underneath. So here, for example, basically under the project design and implementation sub-criteria, the following aspects are being assessed. It's your project's clarity and consistency, if there are logical links between the identified problems and the solutions you are proposing, also the methodology of implementing your project, a balanced distribution of the task responsibilities inside the consortium and the project, and also if it has a clear and justified rationale for the composition of the consortium. On the other hand, the cost effectiveness sub-criteria, it assesses, the experts will assess the feasibility of the project within the proposed time frame and the budget, and also show the cost effectiveness itself. So it's if it has the best value for the money, if you really planned sufficient and also appropriate budget for proper implementation. Next slide, please. Here we have the third award criteria, which is impact. It also applies for both strands. So basically it assesses your project's impact evaluation methodology and also your long-term sustainability, in a sense, how you involve the public authorities, long-term vision and possibility to scale up innovative practices beyond the project end. And also it assesses the effectiveness of dissemination of the results of your project. Next slide, please. And here, also as promised, let's talk about the operational and financial capacity of the coordinator. This is also applicable for strand 1 and strand 2. So please, let's go to the next slide. Only operational capacity of the coordinator will be assessed. And also note that operational capacity check does not apply if the coordinator is a public body. However, again, we recommend you to study the call conditions carefully and see how the public entities are defined there. So how the granting authority defines the public entity. Because it may happen that although you consider yourself to be a public entity, a public body, but the granting authority may not. And in this case, for example, your application could be rejected if you do not provide the necessary documents to prove your operational capacity. So, but to prove the operational capacity, the coordinator, and note here as the legal entity, as the applicant coordinator as a legal entity, not the physical person itself, it has to show that it has the sufficient experience in project management. And how do you show it? So it must be proved by showing us that a coordinator has managed at least one consortium project funded by the EU or national funds, which meets 5 requirements. So we will check those 5 requirements in the next slide. Next slide, please. What are those 5 requirements that we have for this consortium project? So first of all, the project should have been managed by the coordinator, the current applicant, so to say, the legal entity. So you should also, note here, you should have managed the project, not only be a partner in a consortium before. Also, this project, this one consortium project, must have involved beneficiaries from no fewer than 2 different countries. So we're talking about the international projects here. Also, it should have lasted at least 12 months. It should have had the total budget of more than 200,000 euros. And also, it should have been implemented within the last 5 years. And there you see the time frame where this project would fall in. And note here, also really important, that this project that you are basing your operational capacity on must be completed already before the submission of the application. It cannot be still ongoing. And so probably let's move to the next slide. I think it's okay, it's clear here. What kind of documents you need to submit as a coordinator to prove your operational capacity? So first of all, Annex 5, list of the previous projects. We talked about it already. You put here all the information regarding the projects that you implemented and prove us that you implemented at least this one project which meets those 5 requirements. And then together with the Annex 5, you have to submit the proof that this one project meets 5 requirements. So, for example, the proof can be a grant agreement signed, or a link to the website or the funding instrument of the program. So, for example, if you implemented a Horizon or Erasmus Plus project, so it's sufficient for us to give a link to the source in the Annex 5. And then also you should submit the Annex 8, which is the declaration of the professional competences. And here it's also necessary near all the qualifications and competences of your coordinators team, also that this coordinators team has a very good command of English, so C1 or C2 level. Next slide, please. And here we move to the financial capacity check. So here again, only the financial capacity of the coordinator will be assessed. Financial is the same as the operational capacity. So financial capacity verification also is not being applied to the public bodies. And in comparison to other checks, financial capacity will be assessed a bit at a later stage when the application is already pre-selected for funding. I'm also not going to go into the detail here, but the list of the supporting documents, which we will ask you to prove your financial capacities, to be found in the call conditions. See here, it's written in section 8.1, where you can find them all listed out. And basically, still, it's the coordinator has to prove that they have a stable, sufficient, and solid financial resources to prove that they really have this financial capacity to implement the project. And note, however, that if we conclude that you do not have a financial capacity or the operational capacity, the whole application will be rejected. Next slide, please. Yeah, the very last slide here for me. So it's exclusion criteria. I guess exclusion criteria will be known for the ones who implemented the project from the EU budget. Again, not going to go to the detail and here I'm not going to read them out loud now, but you can find them all listed in the call conditions. But basically, again, these are like the bankruptcy or being found guilty of fraud, corruption, or guilty of other irregularities. So, which is also not applicable for all an applicant and co-applicants. Next slide, please. Thank you from my side. We wish you a big success. And I give a word back to you now.
Thank you, Inga, for your presentation. Indeed, what you should do after the session and to read very carefully call conditions and all annexes to the call conditions. Also, we encourage you to watch videos. We have videos on how to fill in detailed budget table, on how to fill in application form. Also, I'd like to remind you, or just to if you don't have missed this information on the call conditions, that the number of symbols in the application is limited. So you need to put all information in a very concise manner. So you presented all relevant information related to your project. So because we will be assessing only information presented in the application form and the requirement annexes, and information provided by you and some additional annexes won't be considered during the assessment of applications. So please bear that in mind. So all text should be presented in the applications and requirement annexes. Information should be concise. And so experts assessing the application can find all answers to this, to the criteria and assessment questions. So now let's move on to the last section. It's a matchmaking event. Some of you might already start a discussion with relevant partners for your consortium. However, some of you don't have any partners, and to assist you in finding other members of a consortia to apply to this call, we are providing you such an opportunity by organizing matchmaking event, or its matchmaking sessions. Can you move to the next slide, please? So matchmaking event will be done from a B2Match platform. And to participate in the matchmaking sessions, you need first to register to the B2Match platform. Information on how to access this platform will be here on slides, and also will be on the calls page. So registration will be open to B2Match platform next Monday on June 8th and will be open until June 9th. Matchmaking sessions will start on June 15 and will last for 5 days until June 19. Participate in the sessions can only registered participants, which will be screened and approved by us. As soon as you're approved, you can schedule a meeting. You can scan profile of all registered participants, schedule a meetings, and also it's important that once you're registered, even if you, due to some reasons, fail to organize meetings in these 5 days, you still will be able to see information of our participants on the B2Match platform, let's say for a whole summer or for duration of a drafting of application. Can you move to the next slide, please? So just, yeah, why to participate? Because it's a great opportunity to find relevant partners for this call, or maybe not only for this call, in general partners working in the similar area with whom you can build a consortium and participate in this call, and also improve your visibility, because there is a section where you need to draft your profile, which will be visible for our registered participants. And of course, that simplifies meeting as it's AI-powered tool. Next slide, please. So one more time, how to participate. First step, you register to the B2Match platform via the provided link. You can start registration in next Monday. So you create your profile, and would like to advise you to put as much information as possible about the organization which you represent, because that helps our attendees to better understand what you're proposing and whether that's matches of what they're looking for. So you can browse profiles of our attendees as soon as they are approved. You can message all contacts, you can send receive meeting requests. More than one person from one organization can participate in the meetings. If I recall correctly, it's up to 8 people who can participate in one meeting. So yeah, that's a really valuable tool if you are looking for partners. So we encourage you to use it. Let's move to the next slide. And the next one. So that concludes our session for today. We hope that it was useful. So we're here to assist you. So should you have any questions related to the call, please send these questions to 2 dedicated emails. So if you're applying under Strand 1, please send your question to the dedicated email ecg@socialinnovationplus.eu. If you're applying under Strand 2, this email going to be romaneets@socialinnovationplus.eu. We will be collecting these questions. We will be publishing them next to FAQ section under each of a strand. And also we are planning to have 2 more info sessions. There are going to be separate info sessions per strand. We are planning them at the beginning of September. And we will include questions and answers received from you during the summer months. And also it's you will have an opportunity to answer questions during these sessions. So thank you for participation. We invite you to fill in an evaluation form, and wish you luck applying to this call. Have a great rest of the day.